Hi, my name is Dr. Brandi Maynard, and this session is My Child is Gifted, Parenting with Infinite Unity. Now what? I know that you probably have a gifted child in your life, and that person may look like this kid. I got a little bit of flack for this kid. We have a white male, and we've got a bow tie and glasses. Typical what we think of when we think gifted, but not all gifted kids are like that. When I was creating this session, I was actually thinking about this specific child. He is going into 6th grade. He's got a high IQ. Processing speed is quite low. He's got ADHD, so he's twice exceptional. A very quirky, cool kid. Love his parents. And think about a gifted kid in your life. What are they like? What are some of those characteristics that they have? And who are they as people? Because this is where we're headed, and this is what we're going to be talking about and learning about in this session, My Child is Gifted, Parenting with Infinite Unity. Now what? Let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Brandi Maynard, and this is not my first rodeo. I have been around for a long time. My students call me Dr. B. Please call me Brandi. I'm hoping that we'll have an opportunity to connect with one another after this session, so feel free to reach out to me anytime. I would love to have that connection with you, but this is not my first rodeo. I started working with gifted kids back in 1996, and I took over for a beloved teacher who had resigned in the district. I was this fresh-faced, young teacher who had taken a couple classes in gifted, but when I stood in front of these 12 students, I felt like I did not know what I was doing. They were different than anything that I had ever experienced before. And you probably know what I'm talking about if you parented a gifted child. In some parenting groups, they're talking about things and you're thinking, that's not my child. And they look at you like you're completely from another planet when you share some of your own parenting tips, tricks, strategies, challenges, joys. They're like, where is this mom or dad coming from? So I've been around the block for a while. I've been coaching and working with gifted families since 1996, and also working with teachers, students, school leaders across the United States and even in other countries. So I'm experienced. I've been around for a while. I'm also a gifted parent. And my kids are pretty camera shy. So this is a picture from quite a while back. I went through a PhD program at Gonzaga University, and this picture was taken after a dear friend of mine graduated from Gonzaga. I had met her there, and my family went to celebrate her. And I love the picture most of all in the upper right-hand corner, and this is me, Pele, the volcano goddess, and it reminds me of one of my very favorite gifted students. And he and I would spend every Wednesday together after class, and he loved to help me, and we always would have conversations, and it was our one-on-one time, and I just adore this boy. And he helped me one year decide on my costume, and he said, Dr. B, you need to be Pele, the volcano goddess. And she's perfect. I've been to Hawaii. You look like her. And I was like, who is this Pele? And he needed to tell me how to spell her name. We went and looked her up, and this is the costume. And I just think about this boy every time that I do any kind of classes with parents, because he was profoundly gifted, and the quirkier, the better for me. I don't know about you, but we got along so well, and he was absolutely a precious part of every Wednesday. And when I went to his kindergarten graduation, now remember, he was 5. When I went to his kindergarten graduation, he said that his favorite part of the school year was his one-on-one time with Dr. B. So we still write letters back and forth. He's from the San Diego area, and I just adore him. So Pele, the volcano goddess, that is who I am. I think she's my spirit person. So the first thing that we're going to do is just some agree and disagree. So if you've got a notebook in front of you, or think to yourself that first thing that comes to your mind, do you strongly agree, or do you strongly disagree, or are you somewhere in between? And the first statement is agree or disagree. Giftedness is hereditary. And the correct answer is true. Yes, it is hereditary. Oftentimes, siblings are within 5 points of one another on an IQ scale, and they may not look alike though. So you may have 2 siblings. Oftentimes, in my experience, you have 2 siblings like mine that are polar opposites, could not be farther from one another. Generally, one is a textbook gifted. I've found that it's the first, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the firstborn. And you have somebody who looks a lot different. I had one parent say to me one time, I don't understand, Brandi, like this child I don't even think is going to fall on the gifted scale. All she wants to do is hop on her trampoline and do her math facts. And we tested the two siblings, and the youngest was actually higher in her cognitive abilities test scores than her older sister, which is interesting. And I see that because they want to be different. And sometimes they feel like, and this is just my hypothesis, I don't know if this is necessarily true, but in my experience, I've worked with thousands of kids and parents, and teachers, is that when you have a sibling, and I think back to my own experience as a sibling, an older child, if you're the younger child and you don't feel like you can ever meet up or reach the same type of excellence as that older child, you're not going to try to get there because you feel like you're going to fail. So you're going to go in a different direction. So your giftedness might look different. You may have an introvert and an extrovert, so it's going to show up differently. You may have kids that are gifted in different areas, so that's going to show up differently as well. So just know that even though they don't look alike, oftentimes they test alike, and they're generally within 5 to 10 points of a parent and even 5 to 10 points of a grandparent, which I think is also very interesting. The next one, gifted students may not learn anything new in school until January or February. Agree or disagree? And there is a study out there that says that is absolutely true. A study was done out of UConn 3rd and 4th grade students, and they realized that by the time January came along, students started to learn new things in the school year. We want kids to learn new things every single day. And when you look at a bell curve, which we have right here, you've got the average student, and you've got teachers that are teaching to the average and even a little bit below or above average students. When you're talking about gifted students over here on the bell curve, teachers are doing the best they can to meet the needs of the kids up here, but oftentimes that new material doesn't come until later in the school year, just because the teachers haven't been schooled in what it is that they need to do in order to meet the needs of these kids. How do you differentiate? How do you meet the needs of these kids? And I'm going to give you a little bit more information. I can't remember if it's going to be a question on a slide in a little bit. And if it is, you're going to get an A+. But oftentimes teachers don't even get a course in gifted education. They get one chapter out of one book that's generally taught by a special education teacher. And so think about that. One course, one book taught by a special education teacher, maybe 15 to 45 minutes of classroom discussion around gifted education. And I promise you, you will have gifted kids in your classrooms. That's what we tell teachers all the time. You will have gifted kids in your classrooms. Your children are going to be one of those gifted kids, and their teachers probably haven't had a lot of training in gifted ed. And so that's true. They're not learning new things until later on in the school year. Agree or disagree? Students must be committed to tasks to truly be gifted. And the answer is true. And this one is a little bit controversial. And this came out from Joe Renzulli back in 1978. And this is called the 3-ring conceptual definition of giftedness. And it says that we need to have in that green area above average ability, in the red area, creativity, and in the third area, down below the blue circle, is task commitment. And that synergy that happens in the middle, that is giftedness. And that's when all of those things are working together. But think about this task commitment. This is not a commitment to doing those things that you already know how to do between September and January. This is a task commitment to those areas of giftedness. So it's that synergy that a student brings to a task when they're in flow, and it's an area that they're truly passionate and interested in. And I know that you've seen your students light up in this area. For them, it could be something that they're building. I've got a little girl I'm working with now that it's space, and it could be anything at all. It could be the little boy that I was working in, and for him it was tsunamis and earthquakes and any kind of natural disasters. And that was something that he was really passionate about. But when he talks about those things, and when she talks about space and perhaps going there someday, there is that commitment to the task to actually get there. Plus the talent, the above average ability, and then the creativity of how they're going to make that happen. And that is giftedness. Agree or disagree? All students deserve to learn new things every single day. I think we can move to this one very quickly. That is true. And oftentimes that doesn't happen in our classrooms, like we mentioned before, because our teachers are not trained in how to deal with gifted kids. And that's no fault of their own. It's the system. It's the way that the system works. And so we as parents need to step up, step in, and help them, step alongside them and help give them some of the guidance that they need. And I know that that sounds a little bit awkward. And one of the ways that we can do that first is by, like this class, being an ally to them at home, and then learning how you can be an ally with a teacher at school and help to build some of those, just some awareness of your own child. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit when we move into the letter that we're writing about our children today. Agree or disagree? Gifted kids prefer older peers and spending time with adults. This is oftentimes true. You'll see them with older peers in the neighborhood, older cousins, oftentimes parents. I know when I was working in the classroom, I often had kids out at recess who wanted to spend time with me because I was the only one on the playground that really got them. And that's true. They oftentimes either will flock to one another, but they may not find another person who's gifted in their schools, especially if they're rural. It's difficult for them to find those intellectual peers, but they will definitely gravitate more towards adults or older peers. Agree or disagree? Our culture is not always kind to individuals who behave a little bit differently. And I would strongly agree. Our culture is not always kind to those who behave a little differently. Thus, even when they're not associated with negative behaviors or disorders, overexcitabilities may be seen as just strange, which may be devastating to a child. And when we talk about overexcitabilities, we're talking about Dabrowski's work, where he's talking about sensual overexcitabilities, psychomotor overexcitabilities. It's those kids who just always have to be moving. It's kids who feel things so much more intensely than others. Oftentimes they'll feel their socks scrunched up, or they'll feel the tags in the back of their shirt. I did a whole series on this. So if you want to follow my YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/Brandi with an I, Maynard, PhD. I have a series on there on Dabrowski, and it's really fascinating what Dabrowski has to say about these overexcitabilities, and it just makes kids seem a little bit strange, and that can be devastating to a child, especially a gifted child. Agree or disagree? Gifted kids get frustrated when things do not come easily. And if you're a parent, you know this is true. You'll see the rage because they're used to things coming easy. And when things don't come easily and they're no longer the big fish in a really small pond, they get very, very frustrated and they'll rage. And one thing that I want to always tell parents is help them to get through that. One thing I suggest, just one of many tips, is to give them something difficult to do when they're young, because we don't want them to struggle when they're older. The stakes are much, much higher in high school, on to college, and into adulthood. We want to teach them when they're young. So we might give them a challenge of baking a cake or baking cookies without a recipe. How do you go through the thought process? And when you're going through that with them, be that Jiminy Cricket voice on their shoulder, like the one Pinocchio had, where you're using positive self-talk and talking through that with them to help them get from point A to point B without rage. Maybe next time they don't know how to ride a bike, give them more opportunities to try these things without big consequences. You want to make sure that you're that voice, that positive self-talk. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you an additional course on top of this one that you can purchase that really goes in to how you can build on your child's strengths, but then again, help them with the self-talk and the other pieces of life that are so important when they're young and impressionable, like this little girl here. We don't want them raging. We want to give them the tools that they need in order to be successful as they go through life. Agree or disagree? I seem to be the only one in parenting groups talking about gifted issues. And that might be you. I hear this oftentimes. I never feel like I fit in. Is this true for you? Do you feel like you're the only one that is inside of these groups and that other parents don't get you? You're talking about your child reading in second grade. At age 2. You can't find books for them because they're a second grader reading at a ninth grade level. You've got all of these struggles and parents are like, are you kidding me? You've got it so easy. And you're thinking, are you kidding me? I am dealing with academic, social, and emotional issues that you can't even imagine. And really, it's funny. I had a parent tell me yesterday, she was speaking to another group of parents about our community, which is the Infinite Unity Gifted Community. And she said, I signed up for my kids. I didn't realize that I needed it as much as my kids needed it. I needed to find a group where I really felt like I belonged, where I felt like I could come together, be myself, be fully transparent, lay it out on the line, say it like it is, and have other parents really get where I was coming from, because nobody really got where I was coming from before. And it's nice to be part of a group of intellectual peers that finally get that. And that is what we do here at giftedresources.com. And you can check out and learn more about that. We'll get to it a little bit more, but it's all about parenting for infinite potential. And this infinite unity parenting that I talk about, this comes from my dissertation research that I worked on. And I've really triangulated that data and kind of pulled it all together. This is what I came up with of what it looks like started out as what it looked like for teachers, but as I really started to triangulate the data and go back to all the conversations that I've had from 1996 to today in coaching students, parents, teachers, school leaders, I found these are the 5 areas that students really need, that kids really need. And as parents, we can come together and we can give that to them. And not only is this for parenting, it's also for teaching, but we're starting with parenting before we can move to the teachers. So know that my big picture, I have everybody in mind, but we've got to start with the people that are closest and nearest and dearest to the hearts of these kiddos, and that's their mom and dad. So the first is becoming their ally, and that's what we're focusing on today, how you can become an ally to those kids and really help them to be the best that they can be, to walk alongside them and to be their helper. Next is to adapt to their ever-changing needs academically, socially, and emotionally. Building an architecture so that learning environment is an optimal learning environment for kids at home and eventually at school. Aggregating the best resources, and this is the best human, digital, and print resources so your kids can reach their infinite potential. And finally, promoting agency. And I tell mom and dad, it's the secret sauce so they're not living in your basement when they're 25 years old. So we're talking about becoming an ally, becoming your child's greatest ally and nurturing positive relationships with their schools, coaches, and other adults in their lives. And that's what we're doing today when we're talking about writing this letter to the adults or the grown-ups in their life. And a mentor of mine said, to become successful, a child needs one important ally. That's all it takes. One important person in their life that's going to pour into them. And it's best if it's somebody that's different than mom and dad. If they can find one other grown-up, it's going to make all the difference. And everyone needs an ally. This is my ally. Her name is Margot. She goes by Margot or Margarita. And she did a TED Talk. You can watch her TED Talk. But it's funny, one of the TED Talks that made me think about it, Rita Pearson says, every child needs a champion. And I just slightly moved that and said, every one of us needs an ally. So in a moment, when we go into the course, and you'll be able to see it, you'll see Rita Pearson's TED Talk, and then you'll see Margot Long's TED Talk. And Margot is my ally. She's come alongside me for every one of those milestones. And I don't know about you, but you can look back on those milestones in your life, and you can point out the ones that helped you to make very significant moves forward in your area. And I read something this morning that said, you know what? If you look back, all decisions that you make along the way get you to where you are today, and they're the right decisions, and everything always works out. And I think that's true. But it works out in different ways depending on the decisions that you make. And Margot helped me make some specific decisions that really got me farther in my life along the way. She's been an ally to me, like I believe that every child needs an ally in their life. So I started back in gifted education in 1996, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I started on my master's degree, went through my master's degree, had a course with Margot Long, and I remember going to her house for the first time, and I said, this reminds me of Mary Inglebright. And she said, yeah, I give Mary all of my best inspiration. And that just cracked me up. And I remember saying to her, I want to do what you do. And she always said to me, if you want to find a mentor, look for somebody who's where you want to be and ask them if they'll mentor you to help you get to where you want to go. And I asked her, she was a speaker both nationally and internationally, and she worked with both parents and teachers in gifted education. I said, that's what I want to do. And she looked at me, and I think knowingly, because I was this fresh-faced little 25-year-old thing, and I said, that's what I want to do. And she said, well, you have two options. You really need credibility. You're young, so you either need to get a PhD or you need to work on writing a book. And I said, okay. So I went to my best friend and I said, let's get a PhD. It'll be great. And we did. We did it together, every class together. It was so much fun. And it was Margot that helped me to make that decision. And there were lots of decisions along the way that I had this ally in my life as I was going along. And I just think that that's what we need to do for kids. We need to give them an ally because it really takes very little authentic attention in order to get a maximum result. And that's something that Margot tells me all the time. So do you want to become a thought partner with your child? Do you want to show your child that you believe in them even when they don't believe in themselves? Do you want to anticipate their needs and have intuition to turn the learning over to your child? And I'm hoping that you'll say yes to all of these questions because as parents, that's what we want. We want to give our kids the agency to be the best that they can be and give them a life that was better than ours. So like Margot says, how little the authentic time for a maximum return. It doesn't take much time for a maximum return. It just takes a little bit of authentic time. And it reminds me of my own son. And so I told you I would introduce you to a couple people. One is myself, and then another is Mr. Jensen. So this is my son. And a couple things that I just want to point out as I'm talking about parenting him. One is to celebrate, is to be part of the I have faith in you moments. And this is one of those I have faith in you moments because I tell you, I'm brave and I'm not a helicopter mom. I tend to be one of those moms that allows them to go and to thrive and to be who they are and to take risks. And if they get hurt, they'll only do it once. And I just tend to, be more relaxed. I think it's because I'm raising two boys. That being said, it is so difficult for me to watch the motorcycle stuff. My hands and my palms just sweat as I see them going, especially this one, going so fast around our property. And I can just feel myself and he'll be like, watch me, mom, watch me, mom. I hear that all the time. I think it's a boy mom thing, could be also a girl mom thing, but I watch. And then when he's not watching, I have to just close my eyes and pull them closed because I know he's going to be fine. He's been riding for the past 12 years, but it is scary when he's hitting these jumps and he's catching this serious air. My niece actually took this picture because I couldn't get close enough to take it because it's not easy, but I have to celebrate those moments, those I have faith in you moments. I know you're going to do well. I know you're going to make it. And so I remember when he was little in kindergarten, here's this kid who could ride a motorcycle, he could fly through jumps, and he sobbed getting on the bus. And I said, Ren, you have to go and you have to make the best of this. You need to learn how to make learning fun. He said, no, Miss Steele has to learn how to make learning fun. And I remember I would have to carry him sobbing and put him onto the bus because he just did not want to go to school. And it was heartbreaking as a parent. And I had to learn how to really work with her and help him so that they could have a good connection with one another and I could have a good connection with her. And those are some of the things that I've learned across time is how you work with those teachers to really build that strong homeschool connection. And I have that knowledge and that ability because I am a teacher. So I know what it takes in order to work with them in order to be successful. And then again, the second one is the watch me mom moment. So being present for those things that are important to them. And for him, it's riding his motorcycle, it's playing his instrument, it's just being part of what we're doing as a family. Last night, it was laying out under the stars and watching shooting stars and talking about space. It just depends on the day. But being part of those moments, celebrating and watching them. This is Mr. Jensen, and if you need to pause this video because you're emotional and would like to go get a piece of tissue, feel free to do that. This is an emotional video. I think you're really going to like it. And this is a video called Meet Mr. Jensen and actually be Mr. Jensen. So let me pull up this video so that we can watch it together, and let's learn about who Mr. Jensen is and how we can be him. All right, here we go.
I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping, and the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." And so I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me. And I will never forget it. And so I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "Now, I need you to know something. You're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." And from that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me and he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
That was such a powerful story to meet Mr. Jensen and to actually be Mr. Jensen. We really need to see our kids. We need to see them. We need to see their strengths and their weaknesses, and we need to nurture those strengths. Oftentimes I get asked, "But Brandi, what do I do about the weaknesses?" Don't worry about the weaknesses. The teachers and you can help shore up those weaknesses just to get them to standard. Really take those strengths and allow them to fly. I was watching or reading a book yesterday, listening to an audiobook actually yesterday, and they were talking about how important it is to focus on those weaknesses, because if you focus on those weaknesses, it allows you to shine. And I thought, that is complete nonsense, and that's not true. And don't fall into the trap of that, because think about it. If you're working in those areas of strengths, if you're working in those areas of weakness, and I want to become a singer, I might become an okay singer. Maybe even with 10,000 hours, I might become a good singer. I'm never going to become an incredible singer like a Faith Hill. Never. Because I don't have that natural talent, that natural gift. But if I took the natural gifts that I do have, public speaking being one of them, and I took that 10,000 hours and I poured it into public speaking, imagine the abilities that I'm going to have after that 10,000 hours. And that's what I want you to think about when you're thinking about really nurturing those strengths and having kids excel in those strengths areas. Look at this with Clint and his ability with his drumming, because Mr. Jensen believed in him. He saw that special talent and he took him to the next level. That is so powerful. And today we're going to write a letter to your child's teacher. You're going to introduce your child to your anything but ordinary child. You're going to introduce their teacher to your anything but ordinary child, your extraordinary child. So let me go in here right now and I'll show you how we're going to get there. So when you get into here, you're going to go to infiniteunity.group.app/courses. And I'm just going to actually show you what it's going to look like without the ally at the end. It'll look like this. So once you get inside there, and mine is going to look a little different than yours. This is for the Infinite Unity Gifted community. Once you're inside and you're a member, you'll have access to all of this information. We've got free classes and things for parents. This is a class that you're taking right now, the free version of this class. If you want to go forward, it's only $97 for the additional content. And there's 3 hours of content inside of this class. So you can open it up here. At the top, you'll see there's 15 lessons, an hour and 22 minutes, but I haven't put this recording in yet. So it'll actually be 2 hours and 22 minutes of content that'll be part of this class. You can go down to the bottom and you can see the scope and sequence. So what's involved in this class. So you'll see what kinds of things that you'll learn. I mentioned earlier the self-talk and some of those things. The letter writing template, though, is free. So you'll come down here and you're going to click here where it says letter writing template. And this is going to open it up inside of Gmail, if you have Gmail or if you have Word. And it's just some information for your child's teacher about your child. And a lot of this that's in yellow, you're going to replace. So you'll be replacing a lot of it with their first name. So anything that's over here in bold is going to be with their first name. But here it says share a brief overview about your family. Your teacher really wants to know this. They want to know what your child is currently able to do. What are their strengths? What are their passions? What are they interested in? And again, you can just go through here and you can write down and just change this up and have it ready for your child's teacher in probably about 5 to 10 minutes. If you want to personalize it, you can definitely do that. You can personalize it, change it up to anything that works for you, and you can include more information in here. You can print this and then get a card and share some letters of affirmation with your child's teacher or just some warm wishes as they get started in the new year. And you can also put in there, if you want to, an Amazon card or a coffee card to a local coffee shop. You can slide in. One thing that I loved as a teacher is when I had some artwork that was done for me by the child. That was always nice. And then I would get like a mason jar with flowers at the beginning of the year from certain parents. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. It was flowers that they picked out of their yard. It wasn't a lot of money on their part. The mason jar, it could have just been a pickle jar that they had washed out. I don't know, but I loved it. And that's usually how I started out the year. So something that's just personalized to them, but definitely this is how you'll do your letter. The one piece of this that's missing that I want to show you is the gold mind. And this is in Renzulli Learning. So you're going to go to the home edition. And if you have already read about this, there's $5 for you to subscribe. And usually it's $15 for the year, but they're doing it $5 just based on COVID. So you can get that $5 price right now based on COVID. And you will log in. Once you log in, your child will be prompted to take a test. And the test is a series of questions. If they're under 3rd grade, it's going to be a smiley face, a straight face, and a frowny face. And then if they're older, it's more of a Likert scale. I really like this or I don't like this so much. And then once you're inside of here, then what we're going to do is your child's going to have the profiler tool. So they'll go up to the profiler and then you'll see down here on my profile tool, here you go. This area up here is what you're going to print for your child's teacher. And the top area are the things that your child is interested in. So this is mine, business, science, and technology. How I like to learn my interest, which is through simulations, independent study, and discussions. And then finally, how I like to show what I know, which is through oral presentations, technology, and service. So you'll be doing something similar with your child, and you're going to get very specific results. You'll hit printable copy. You'll print this. My recommendation is to print 2 copies, one for yourself and one for the child's teacher, and then put this inside of the letter as well. I mention it inside that letter so the teacher knows what that is. If you would like to attend and go through more of this masterclass, like I mentioned before, the masterclass is here. There's 15 lessons in the masterclass. It'll be 2 hours and about 23 minutes of content that's inside of here, and I'll be updating it so you'll get any free updates as things come along too. One thing that you'll be very interested in, and I have it across the room, but it's called the Wheel of Choice. So it's how you can use that profiler to create a wheel so your child can be engaged in the learning that they have. Also, my secret weapon for intentional living that I do every morning, making your thinking visible, that positive self-talk. So really it's all about us getting acquainted, moving into your areas of weakness and how you can shore those up to be transparent with your child, and then wrapping your arms around them and nurturing your child's strengths, and then finally believing in your children even when they don't believe in themselves. So let's go back to this masterclass. There's just a few more slides I want to share with you before we are finished with this session. So after you've written a letter to your child's teacher, remember you're going to share anything. You're going to share with your child's teacher everything about your anything but ordinary child, and that's going to help them. And believe me, they want this information because it makes their life a lot easier. Your teacher wants to know your child because we call them, as teachers, we call them our kids, and we call them our kids for a reason. We love them. By the end of the school year, we truly, truly love them. And if we can get to know them early in the year, it makes our job so much easier. The Renzulli Learning Profile is a treasure trove of information for both you and your parent and your child's teacher, and you'll be able to use the template to make that job so much easier. So the results of this is a stronger homeschool connection, and it's helping you to help your child build their infinite unity and their true potential. So just as a review, to be an infinite unity parent and be an intentional parent, you're going to be the one. It only takes one person to help a child succeed. You're going to give them authentic time and notice their unique brilliance. You're going to believe in them even when they don't believe in themselves. And you're going to write a letter and tell their teachers what makes them unique. If you would like to become part of our community, we have an Infinite Unity Gifted community. This is the community I mentioned earlier where parents don't even realize they need it. They don't realize that they need to be in community with other people who get them. It's $49 annually, which is $588 a year, or $59 if you want to do it monthly, and that's less than one family dinner out. And here's what you get. You become part of our community. We're a group of intellectual peers, and we get one another. We get together on a regular basis, and we just talk about these things. I share out pieces from the content, so you'll get pieces from those classes that come out too. That $97 class, you'll get 4 videos from that specific class out of the 15 for free as a member of the community. Each week you'll get a video about what it is that we're learning and doing. I just shipped off packages the other day where I sent out wheels of choice, so you'll get things in the mail sometimes if we're doing something around a specific area. So you'll get the support and resources that you need. You'll get live lessons every month, and you'll get parenting resources. You'll get access to the online community, and that was that online community that I shared with you, as well as access to others who've been there before you. So you're not a parent who's parenting a gifted first grader. You're not the only one. There are others that are now parenting third graders that understand what it means to parent a first grader because they've been there. I will be there to help you as well, so you'll get that attention that you need and that advocate to help you as you've got questions along the way. And support when things get rough. Things will get rough. You've been there in the past. You can go through and try to figure all that out yourself, or you can have that built-in support so when things do get rough, you've got people that are willing to rally around behind you, and you'll reach your goals faster if you join our team. So check us out at giftedresources.com. We would love to have you. And if you want to pass this along to anybody in your network, we would love to have them. This is a free course. Anyone who registers for our free course, you'll see that we're going to be doing free courses over the next 5 months. So we'll be doing courses in all of those intentional parenting areas, and then we'll be doing some additional information that you'll be able to watch on the go if you decide to purchase and buy into those additional classes. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I know this class was helpful for you, and I hope that you begin to put some of these ideas into practice so that you can become the intentional parent that you want to be. Thank you again for your time and attention. Bye for now.